Okay, so today I'm going to just talk about kind of it being Saturday. I'm going to just talk a little bit looser about things, talk about some personal things that I'm doing, um, and then some other stuff, and then just going to talk about the topic about how to make our dog feel safe when they hear noises, when they see things that are scary. And I'm just going to talk about the basics of it. I'm not going to get into too much detail. I'm going to keep this kind of a short Saturday and just talk about some of the things that are going on. Also, which is really kind of cool. So I finally decided to start selling my old comic books. So I'm going to sell this one that I have listed up. This is Conan the Barbarian #1 edition. This thing has not seen real light in 40 years. All the stuff. I have all these other ones here. This is Frank Miller and all that stuff. This is kind of cool. Batman: The Dark Knight. There's just being a little kid. This one. So this one's going for about 1,000 US, 1,400 US right now. And then this one here is pristine mint condition. It's never been taken out in literally 2008. So in 13 years, this thing is probably worth about 2,000 US. So I'm pretty happy about that, to be able to go through all my junk and all that stuff. And then I had my Barry Bonds card that I got. So getting into trading some sports cards and all that stuff. I have a friend of mine in Florida, very, very successful gentleman who has a really nice sports trading thing. So I've got some really cool cards coming on the way that I can't wait to share when it shows up. So some amazing cards. A couple of them are quite rare actually. So it's just really lucked out. Okay, so I'm going to talk about emotional safety for our dogs. How do we let our dogs feel safe when they hear sounds? So the last couple of days I've been talking about tracking, right? Whenever you see an airplane, for example, up in the air, you track it with your voice. So I track it with my voice, and the reason why is I create an objectification, so then I create a direction for where I'm looking at, because my dog can see where I'm looking at, and then he can also, or she can also hear my voice that I create a direction. And while I'm making that objectification of my voice towards the direction, my dog can see the thing up in the sky, whatever that is, that thing in the sky that's making the sound. So I create the connection for them. So then cogently, they create the structure, because right for them, they don't know. They can see the thing up there in the sky. They see, they hear the sound. They don't know where the sound's coming from, but the object is so far away that your dog doesn't have the experience to be able to put together. They're expecting something that far away to have no sound because of the distance. So they don't realize how loud the airplane is. Just like thunder, right? So they don't know where it's coming from, bounces all over the place, right? The sound wherever it comes from. So in this case, I create objectification for my dogs. I make them feel safe by letting them know I know where the sound is coming from. So when I start directing it and pointing it through, and I'm talking casually to them, like, oh, good boy, blah, 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 or I'm talking on the phone, I create direction, I'm showing that I'm tracking the threat. My dog feels safe. When you hear thunder and lightning, and when you hear thunder and all the fireworks and all that stuff, I can still keep my dogs calm. They don't bark, they don't freak out. When they start barking out at sounds out the window, I'm able to get them to literally stop by standing here while I'm doing it live and asking them to literally say the words to them, STOP BARKING. And I use it in a regular context. Right now I'm talking to you guys in kind of a contrived voice, because the door is closed, everything's closed, a bit of quiet night. I want to slow everything down here, so I'm changing the tone, bringing it down a little bit, keeping it conversational with you, but not too much that it becomes contextual for my dogs to hear, because they're hearing different tones. So we say, of course, dogs are incredibly sensitive, incredibly accurate in sound, and they can hear everything, absolutely, and they're processing it in less than a tenth of a second, very, very fast, like slivers in a frame, abstract memory, as I talk about how dogs process to that cogent structure, haha. So what happens is I teach them slowly, I'm trying to keep the, so I change the voice, right? So I teach them by keeping the voice calm, right? So now they're kind of joking around, like they're starting to get animated because I'm watching them and I'm talking and directions going there, so now they start doing cute things. And you're kind of like, oh, okay, I know why, because they want to engage. They want to create a codependent relationship, right? That healthy codependency where it's like, oh, okay, cool. I knew you needed me, right? You can kind of reach over, grab the other person's hand. I knew that. that's that kind of feeling that happens with nonverbal fluency with our dogs. So I keep my tone differently when I'm talking to you, when I'm commenting here, so that the way they don't pick up too much. But it goes back again to the objectification of the sound at the object. By throwing my voice and following it, tracking it, lets my dog know that I'm paying attention to the surroundings, that I'm understanding where it's coming from. Because right off the bat, they're going to be scared. Well, where the heck that sound is? They're going to assume, because we take care of our dogs, feed them, love them, carry them, pet them, put blankets on them. So they're going to assume we know what that sound is coming from. So first, we're not panicking. Last thing I'm going to say is to my dog is, well, don't panic. It's just the sound. I can't explain something that my dog doesn't have a cogency, right? The familiarity. They don't have an emotional reference point. So I can't tell them to do something they've never had that experience. Nor would I ask them to do something that is completely anthropomorphic. So instead, I keep my voice calm and I track it and I track it. And I will keep a lingering tone to them, and it's kind of like when you're calling someone out, like that lingering tone. And I'm not going to do it here, of course. That as I'm talking, then I create that lingering tone that creates the attunation to them, right? To the dog's voice key, like in the Mingki video. And then they hear the tone as I'm tracking it as well. So I keep that familiarity of tone as well as it bounces back and forth. I got to be cognizant of what my dogs are hearing, plus that at the same time. It's got to be able to throw the sound out there, directional, but enough that there's a little bit of fluctuation of tone that backs that way, so it bounces back, right? Kind of like a Doppler effect. Because again, when I go into people's home, right, when they hire me to help meet with their dogs, I go into the home, I will immediately look around, right? And I'll look around and I'll observe, just like a dog does, right? Of course, two-dimensional format, processor, all the vision aspects, what would happen, blah, blah, blah. We all do that. When we come into a home, we case it out. Okay, where's the bathroom? Where do we go? Where do we put our shoes? Blah, 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 right? We know all this stuff. I'll go in and then I start talking and immediately I'll bounce the sound. I'll bounce it. And when I'm talking, I'll bounce it, and I'm talking, and I'll bounce it to them, and I'll bounce it to their dog, and I'll bounce the sound everywhere. I'll make variations. I'll make it softer. I'll make lower tones. I'll bounce it everywhere to hear what's going on, to see whether or not the humans are paying attention and hearing my tone bouncing, as well as watching their dog at the same time. So I'm multitasking everything, making tone, bouncing it off, listening to what's going on, listening and watching the humans, as well as watching their dog for connection, whether or not they're paying attention to me or to their human, or trying to figure out what the sound is or why the sound is much more accurate now, right? The homes with the beautiful marble, huge, 25-foot ceilings, $30 million home and all that stuff, you're like, holy cow, the sound's everywhere, right? Dog can't hear anything. So then I bring the tone a bit more sharper downward towards the dog, and I lower the tone a bit more so there's less bounce. So there's more bass, less bounce. Off the marble, off whatever, laminate floor, always make sure. That way your dog is not trying to hear everything. They understand the sharpness of tone. So I create an objectification. It creates an egocentric behavior because now it becomes directional. It becomes comprehensible for our dog to hear. That's what my human is doing. Oh, right. When I'm talking to a new dog, I go in and I say, is your dog friendly or not friendly? Do you have a lot of people in the neighborhood for places for your dog to behave consequentially? If not, then I have to be the bad guy, right? And I become the bad person, and I have to change my tone in a way where it confuses the dog so he becomes aggressive with me and can't trust me, because I create little tiny fluctuations in my tone constantly to throw the dog off. And whenever I see him make a reaction, I make adjustments again, or I make quick behaviors to throw him off to make him dislike me so that he will continue to try to attack me if there's no other people in the neighborhood. If the dog is not having to worry about that, I don't have to worry about that, then okay, then I become neutral to the dog. So then, depending on the dog's type of dysfunction, if he's high anxiety, it becomes neutral, so then it sucks in his behavior, because he goes, well, why is he not doing anything to me? If the dog is somewhat dysfunctional and afraid and all that stuff, then sometimes I will be a point where I'll present myself as I'm scared. Or else a bit more forceful, never aggressive. You would never be aggressive to any dog unless it's warranted, right? In that sense, and the warrant has to be quite substantial. Like, I've been attacked and I still don't get angry with them. I can't. So depending on the dog, if he's aggressive to me, I may become to the point of just kind of stoic, or else neutral, or very hard in body language to read. Sometimes I'll keep one part of my body moving, and I'll keep the other hand moving, all that type, or I'll move my hand slowly while I'm talking to the other dog and keeping on track of what's going on with the human as well as the sound and bouncing it off. Multitasking the stuff by practicing it one thing at a time. You're doing all these things, not just only are you able to hear and see what your dog is doing at a much faster rate, you can tell when they're scared. Because now you're more sensitive to the sound yourself. You're more sensitive if people are paying attention to what you're saying, to your dog, to them. You're hearing what's going on. You become more empathetic, right? More viscerally evolved. Your cogency improves because now you're paying attention to more. You're much more brighter because your brain's working more. That's why those brilliant minds don't get Alzheimer's. Look at Hawking, Stephen Hawking. So all these things have to happen where you're paying attention to everything. Then your dog goes, oh my gosh, you saw the thunder now. I didn't even have to worry. You heard you saw the airplane. I didn't even have to worry about it now because you got me. You can talk to me in normal tones and voices, and you're doing it all the time. It means all the little stuff, you're keeping me safe. So that's the importance. We've got to keep our dogs safe. So I always, again, give the big hugs. If they get scared of the sound, I start talking to them in just a regular tone of voice. If something happens, I'm going to use a different name, a fake name. If something happens in the sound, Zevia. Right? So if there's a bounce, right, there's a sound or something like that, I'm going to do that again, right? So that those guys hear as well. Zevia. I'm just going to say the name like, it's okay. I got you. Again, to finish off, the other part is dogs are processing sound, vision, everything extremely fast. So it's no difference than when you were a kid. Oh, I thought I turned off the thing. Sorry. It's no different than when you were a kid and you heard your mom call out your name, and you knew by just the way she took her first breath, like you knew you're going for ice cream or you're gonna get grounded forever. Just the way like on the PA, excuse me, Jay. You're like, oh great, the way they said James. Yeah, right. We know, we can tell our own instinct because we hear it. We hear the PA system go on at 10:22 a.m. in the morning in school. We're like, there's never a good reason, and maybe it's me. And they're like, right? We're hearing for it, and we're like, oh, it's not us. It's not me, right? And you're like, okay, that's cool. This is the same thing that happens with our dogs, right? Always paying attention, processing that point because they can't feel safe. They're hearing sounds that they can't create the direction because the sound is not omniscient. I don't know what the word is. It's not omnipotent. Omnipotent. I don't know. It's everywhere, right? And it's bouncing everywhere, so your dog can't tell where the sound is. So when I identify the plane, they go, okay, great. When I identify the helicopter, oh, great. When I identify the birds flying over, oh, great. I'm seeing what's going on. And I'm not going, that's the bird. I'm going, okay, yeah, you're okay. Hi, silly boy. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Just like talking, like you're talking to somebody and you're like, oh yeah, wait, you're watching something, you're like, oh yeah, blah, blah, you're yeah, okay, yeah, I'm listening. That's it. You don't have to make it overt. Behave naturally. Even when you're scared of being killed by a dog. But aside from that, you just talk naturally, blah, 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 like that. You create that objectification because you're talking normally. You're not contriving, you're not waiting to give a treat, you're not trying to do something. You're just interacting very, very quickly. You're not bridging. You're interacting extremely quickly with your dog at animal instinct. That's why I say you can elicit your own predator. You can see as fast as I can. You can process as fast as I can, which is at a 1/10 of a second. Look in the link there for Gordon, the disabled bulldog, Dandy Walker's disease. No one could touch him. No one in 11 months. I thought he was 7 months in there, but he's 11 months old. No one could even pick him up without him trying to attack. And I do it in an hour and 10 minutes, 70 minutes without treats and medication, and I'm processing his behavior. And you're like, oh, well, okay, maybe you're just really special, right? And like, okay, so my brothers have IQs over 160 and all that stuff. But the thing is, they go, well, only you can do it, right? Oh, only James can do, yeah, blah, blah. And I went, well, here, I'll just teach your fosters how to do it. And you can see in the videos, the foster's doing it literally right beside me. And onward and onward. In the night and day, in the sense of Gordon felt at peace. He felt protected. He felt safe. He felt understood for being improperly picked up, right? A bulldog, you can't pick up a bulldog probably because of the weight. It's really hard to pick up, right? So then he's getting the fingers sticking into his, right, into his ribs and all that. Other aspects, his processing time, all these things, right, he can't deal with. And so you let him understand that he's safe. So that's all I did, but I destructured his behavior extremely accurately to see when I do something, to see what he's doing. or to see what he's doing in reaction to what I'm doing subconsciously. So I'm, in other words, always playing back what I'm seeing in my head at all times as well. So not only am I processing what I'm seeing and trying to figure out what's going to happen, I'm also going, okay, what has been happening? And I'm comparing it all, which is exactly what you do as well. Right? When you're talking to somebody, you have a good argument, you're like, you just wait, and I know you're going to say this. So it's not anything special that I'm doing. I just discovered how to do it with dogs. It's the same thing you're doing yourself. I'm giving you human analogies, and the reason why it makes sense is because the human biology, right, endothermic, right, we're warm-blooded biology, and the dog is an endothermic as well, warm-blooded biology, which means that the brains are going to develop similarly. Biology will have caused that development to be similar, and then we cohabitated together. So in emotional isomorphic evolution through a societal construct, right? It's contrived domestication. We follow similarities in the emotional process, which means that our brain structures will have similarities in conscious construct, the compartmentalization of that biological false positive, that, right? Now, I talked about that before. So then what ends up happening is there's going to be similarities because we see it evident when our dog loves us and when our dog gets jealous, the complex emotion of jealousy. How can a simple dog that has a 2-year-old brain be able to process envy and jealousy and in fact learn to calm themselves down? My dogs don't try to attack other dogs when that happens. I bring another dog in, they go, okay, this is not cool, but we can deal with it. They learn how to self-control and be patient because I'm identifying threats to them all the time. I'm identifying when they're concerned. If I say one of their names, I say the other dog's names. I give them ego and identification, egocentric behavior, codependent aspects. Self-esteem builds from that. Codependency, healthiness, codependency, right? That beautiful healthiness, codependency. Not the stalkerish one. That creates neuroticisms coming back again. The dysfunction just comes back and flies in your face again. So what we do instead is we get the healthy codependency where we make acknowledgments of threats like the airplane going over as if it was just another part of the day. So that way when thunder happens, you're talking to them, they're like, oh, where's that sound? Thunder. It sounds like the airplane. Oh, and you talk to them in the home, blah, 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 blah. You don't even have to turn on the TV anymore. And they listen, and then they get to the point where they're just laying there like, oh, this noise is just bugging us. It's by teaching them through guidance, through psychological process, not giving them treats, not giving them the shock collar, right? Can you imagine if I tried this? I mean, all these dogs have come from extremely dangerous environments where David is 200 pounds, 3 feet 2 inches at his shoulders, 16 bites on people. He drags people down the street trying to attack other dogs and humans. 750 milligrams of trazodone, 80 milligrams of Prozac from 6 months to 2.5 years of age. They all come to me weaned off of medication. Every dog. Doesn't matter the one that grabs another shelter worker and tried to kill her. They're all weaned off of medication. So what I do then, I risk the aspect of working with a dog that's extremely dangerous. Absolutely. But why? Because they don't feel safe. Just logic. Would you defend your property if you felt safe? No. Why would you defend your property if you felt safe? You don't have to. You feel safe. You're just like, okay, I don't have to do anything. If you're defending your property because you felt unsafe because someone was inside your home or near your property line, right? You ever park your car somewhere, leave your windows open, and you watch somebody kind of sketchy walking by your car? You're like, oh, right? All right. You get a little, what does your dog do? The same thing. Right? Your dog doesn't feel safe. It's the only reason they're going to be dangerous. The dog that becomes predatory, the dog that tries to kill people, is because of the fact that they have been so repeatedly beaten and hurt, not by one person, but by dozens of people. That's why they bite so many people, because they're exposed to different people who all end up behaving the same way, which creates a distrust, because then it reminds them of the behavior of other people that have hit them in the past or done worse, right? Walter, who was formerly known as Tonka, was beaten so hard in the head when he was at 8 to 9 months by one of 7 different humans in an aggregate of 5 months out of 19 months of age. He was beaten so badly in the head that he suffered 20% blindness and 10% hearing loss and slight brain damage. Turned down by local legend Dr. Rebecca Ledger, who writes for the Vancouver Sun, which is where the article about me with Walter/Tonka was in. Dragged a shelter worker in. All these dogs don't need to be on medication because you're then treating behavior that is innately normal for them to be dangerous. Right? Why are they dangerous? Because they're afraid of being killed. They're afraid of being hurt is more than that. The concept of death escapes dogs because of the abstract, right? It's got to be a contextual learning aspect, as you can well imagine what death is. But again, they're going to do so because they're afraid. That's the reason why they're going to protect themselves. It's because they are afraid of being hurt, either physically or emotionally. How many times have you, as a child, had someone yell at you, right? An adult, you just pee yourself, right? How did your dog feel? Especially if you are their sole controller, hostage taker, Stockholm syndrome, everything you control, we control, absolutely. So we have absolute power. And when we abuse the point of understanding that, oh, a dog needs to be medicated, then we are abusing the comprehension that, you know what, our process with our dog is failing because we're trying to domesticate evolution's innate desire to live outdoors. And we don't take that responsibility heavy enough. And because we don't, part of academia is so guilty because they don't comprehend the difficulty what it has caused now. The biology, right? The endothermic structure, the emotional content is similar, even though it is somewhat diluted in the dog. It's there. We have millennia of relationship, yet we're still coming to the point where we have over 100 million dogs in North America. There's over 1 billion dogs in population globally. So we have over 100 million dogs with a 6% kill rate. That's 6 million dogs being killed every year for simple behavioral issues. The dogs that I'm working with, killed instantly. Not even given these dogs have a high level of intelligence. Right? They don't learn how to express charisma, etc. But all their behavior happens when they feel safe. They're able to survive because they feel safe. You have the person walking by your car, you have the person walking to your home, you're going to feel threatened, you're going to behave in a way because you'll feel unsafe. And what are you going to do if you're in a home with a bunch of people and you have the biggest, baddest dude in the home and it's going to protect the whole house, right? You know, that yippee-ki-yay Bruce Willis kind of thing for you youngins, right? You're going to be like, you got a guy like that, okay, go ahead, take care of him. I don't care, I'm fine, I'm safe, I'm just going to keep sleeping, right? Go take care of it. The whole family's safe. We really don't care. Do whatever you want, right? I'm going to hang out here. I'm safe. That's what your dog is expecting us to do, is to go after the danger, to tell them why the sounds are noisy. Remember when you were a little kid and you heard thunder and lightning and you saw lightning? I was really, really, really scared. I heard about it, but to actually be conscious and cognizant and able to process in my head the structures of fear, abject fear, and be able to feel the thunder so loudly in my chest, to realize, holy cow, I am not invincible and I'm just a little child at the time. That's your dog. Remember the hypersensitivity to explain why the thunder shirt actually works? This is the reason why. So you have all these processes happening and then your dog is trying to process, oh my gosh, who's going to protect me if you can't protect me? If you can't tell me where that sound's coming from. So again, that's why when you hear sound, you hear a motorcycle, because I've created directional aspects. Even if the motorcycle goes behind us, I say, oh, you're okay, blah, blah, blah. Then they hear it. I don't have to say words, blah, 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 blah. Sometimes I just go, oh, yeah, okay, blah, blah, blah. As long as I make it loud enough that they can hear the Doppler effect occur. Remember the same thing I said about walking into a home. If it's a regular home, a home I rent here, the old ugly house, it's so horrible. I hate it. It's got spiders, and I hate spiders. I'm buying a mansion one day, I think. But, you know, or to a huge mansion itself, you know, like a $30 million mansion. Always got to listen for what's hearing, what the sound is, how our dog feels. Right? I can come into a home and go, oh my gosh, what a beautiful home. And then it would freak the heck out of the dog, right? Their dog, who I'm supposed to kind of like figure out what's wrong. I create an impression on the behavior. It's the same thing when you medicate a dog. Create an impression on the processing, the natural processing. To say that the dog is dangerous or the dog has behavioral euthanasia is to literally bastardize, for one's own ego, the process of miscomprehension. To say a dog to have behavioral euthanasia is to say, I don't know how to keep this dog safe. I don't know how to make this dog not want to attack people. But I'm doing this without PhD. Regardless of my IQ, I'm still doing it. There's lots of people who may be as smart as me long before me, but I'm doing it without treats or medication. With every single dog. And I'm teaching people how to do it themselves. The Fosters with Gordon, the disabled bulldog, they're doing it themselves for free. I did the session for free for Lisa at Forever Free because it's one of the largest rescues, and she gave me the chance when everybody else was saying James is a flake. I still have so many people attacking me, but every video shows proof of what I'm doing, and people are doing it themselves, and they're literally sending me emails going, "It works, wow!" And that's it. I'm not asking them for money. That's it. They learned how to calm their own dog down just by watching a guy who learned how to do it with dogs that tried to kill people when everyone else said no, that it was impossible. That's why when it comes to medication for David, for example, the serotonin syndrome occurs as well when a dog is human is that heavily medicated. It affects the kidneys, the diseases, so he's going to have a shortened life. I already know that. That tragedy is already in my head. When is it going to happen? Being a giant Great Dane, heart issues as well, when is that going to happen? So I'm always on the bubble. I'm always afraid of that day when I lose all my emotions when something happens suddenly. I worry about his safety. I worry about all their safety. So I'll do what I can to protect them, even at the little things. If I see them having nuanced behaviors, they're starting to stiffen up, right? Or they start to pause, or they start to stray. If your dog's walking, I'll do this direction. If your dog's walking and this is traffic on this side, and they're walking, right, and the traffic is coming, and they start to stray off to the grass, it's because they're afraid. That's really what it means. That's a nonverbal fluency. Because if your dog's walking straight, normally no problem at all, and then they stray off when a car's coming, and then they go back on the sidewalk. Because they're afraid. Because it's the velocity targeting, it's the way the dog processes the two-dimensional aspects. It can be other aspects of fear. Maybe it's even a structure of abject fear from being a stray dog. We want to put the layers in behind the story to understand what the true psychology is of the dog. So when we medicate the dog, we lose all that. And your dog themselves, predacious, they're predators. They go and process through a fog. That's why you always see the fluctuation in medication. It's always really high and then comes down, or it's really low, then it goes right up and then comes down, right? Bang, bang, bang into your dog's system to address a psychological issue that is actually normal for a predator to behave like. That's the bastardization. So nobody wants to admit that, right? The dog is just behaving as a dog was born to be, as evolution has started before we were around to after we're no longer here. It will be the canines and other predator animals that will still be around. Unless we, of course, become artificial intelligence with autobiological hybrid bodies, etc. But, right, so then the dog is still going to be here. The process has to happen where we realize that doing medication is a scapegoat behavior. The dog is fogged out. So the predator is trying to fight that fog. That's why the fluctuation goes and it takes so long to fight it. As human beings, we're compliant. Okay, I'm going to deal with it, right? I'm going to deal with this or whatever. Your dog, they're not understanding what's going on. They're starting to feel fogged out and they're just pushing and they're trying to fight. And that's why sometimes some dogs don't respond to medication. Yeah, because it's like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It's like the Matrix, right? The truth is trying to get out. Hey, stop medicating me. Stop medicating me. I'm behaving like a normal dog in the wild. You domesticated me. Have some comprehension, empathy. That's, again, every single dog I will take into my home has to have attacked at least 12 people. If they try to kill them, even the better. They have to be at least 150 pounds. It's the newspaper articles, the dogs I've worked with, everything's truthful. because I can do it because it's just a simple process. Making my dog feel safe so that they're no longer afraid of thunder or fireworks. Literally by objectifying those objects, right? The flying objects, as I talked about at the beginning and yesterday, and when the airplane went by. You didn't see a single one barking or freaking out or kind of cowering, and the loud sound of because we're underneath, unfortunately, the flight path. Objectification. That way they're not barking out at the window anymore. They're not barking at thunder. They're not quivering in the corner. They come to me when they need help. And then it get to the point, because it happens so often here, that they don't come to me. They're like, okay, and they look at me, they're a little bit scared, and then later on they just go, and they're, after a year, they don't even care anymore, right? Because thunder doesn't happen every day. So that's the point. One of the most brilliant things about dogs that show the emotional disconnect that we have and the simplicity of comprehension that we have to differentiate is that's a logical process versus our emotional process between dogs and us. As I'm watching TV yesterday, and I can't remember I don't know what it was, and I was just doing it while I was preparing their meals, and so as I was walking back, I was trying to pay attention because someone killed somebody, right? Like it was on a Netflix thing. And so somebody killed somebody, and it's loud, and my dogs were watching the thing for a little bit because of the big quick action that's going on the screen. So they're watching, and there's like bang sounds and noises and all that stuff, and the dogs are watching. And as I'm walking back, the sound bangs off. Something happens, and I look back at this. William's crying. And then as the sound bank goes off, and I look back, I see my dogs are just sitting there normally. They're not reacting. Like the sound went suddenly off. And when it turns on, they hear the dogs barking, they'll look and all that stuff. But they just kind of went, oh, they didn't do anything. And I realized is because they're differentiating the importance of what was on the screen, because I'm watching it with emotional contact. Okay, what's going on? Who was a killer, right? My dogs don't have the emotional context when they're watching stuff like that. There's no reason. There's no affectation for them. There's no intimacy for them to be connected to it. You see some dogs going after other dogs on the screen, etc. Animals, because a higher refresh rate makes the animals look real. Blah blah. But at the end of the day, they're differentiating, going, okay, that big sound noise that we were kind of looking at before, we know it's still coming from the TV, which means it doesn't mean anything, because there's no relation to it. And the sound they know is coming, they're assuming it's coming from the screen and the TV, they're differentiating it. In other words, logically, like they heard it just at the same time I did. It caught me off guard, because one, I was listening for it, but also because it was loud, and my dogs were like, whatever. So they hear the sound, they don't react, but they were no longer interested in it because there was no more emotional interest for them. So they weren't afraid or worried about the sound. They were like, okay, there's nothing to do. So when our dogs hear thunder and all that stuff, they don't know where the sound's coming from. Just like the TV, they're watching the TV. Oh, the TV. Oh, okay. Well, the sound's coming from the TV. Who cares? Whereas I'm like, okay, what happened, right? Oh, now I got to rewind it, and things are covered in raw meat and everything. Right? But I'm objectifying the plane. I'm saying that's where the sound is coming from. That's where the boogeyman is hiding. So there we go. So thank you so much for watching. This is Saturday's thing. I'm trying to get more finesse. I'm trying to do more aspects. If you want to see me change my style, I'm trying to. Still working on stuff. You saw the comics that I'm doing. Hopefully that Conan Barbarian one will go for, I'm hoping, like $500 or $600 US. That'd be awesome. That'd be like $1 return over 50 years or whatever. Yeah, if you want to see anything different, let me know. Any topics, let me know. You're welcome to send me an email if you have any questions, and I'm happy to answer them here. When it comes to destruction behavior in your dog, thank you. If it comes to destruction behavior, you can send me photos, send me a description, the behavior, and I'll read it on live as a blind react. Just put in the title, for your show or whatever, not for your live, and I'll read it on, and then I'll show you how easy it can be to destructure what is going on by reading the individual. Right, so you're gonna kind of be. So I won't say your name, whoever, if you do write it. But what I'll do is I'll destructure the idealectic of your of your details of your paragraph. So the idealectic is kind of basically what I call the psychological profile. It's a real word on how the person writes and blah blah blah. You can ideolectic, like, anyways. So I destructure that by getting that behavior out of that words, right? Because I read the words, I put it together, say it out loud. It's in my head now, and I can hear the rhythm, I can hear the pattern, how people talk in that idealectic, which is the same thing you do when your friend says, hey, I met this guy on Tinder, and you're like, okay, send me the photo, and then you tell her whether or not he's a nice guy or not, and you say, send me his description, and you read the guy's description, and you go, oh, he sounds like a jerk, or look the way he's writing. That's the idealectic. I just used the fancy schmancy word. Idealectic. That's what you just did. Okay, well, I don't know. He doesn't look good enough for you, right? That kind of stuff. So I'll read your idealectic. Okay, what's the personality? And then I'll figure out live what your dog's issues are. And then you'll see how I construct that by literally putting the same pieces you would do together when you're sitting with a friend going, well, what happened at work? Right? That's the same thing. We can problem solve, we can be detectives really simply if we believe in ourselves. And I can tell you, okay, this is what people don't know. So Lincoln was my first dog. Lincoln, my beloved Great Dane. Owner surrendered, 5.5 years old. He was extremely dangerous. I didn't know that. I got him after an ex and she had a Great Dane. I was like, I love Great Dane, so I had him. He was my love. But he was quite dangerous, and I didn't know that. And I didn't know anything about dogs. So yeah, it was quite significant. He became paraplegic and tragically passed away. And then you guys have heard, so some people have heard of Nero, who passed away 2 years ago next month in June. And I got him at 10 years, 4 months of age, so he was already old. He already had the gray hair, the gray fur. And because Lincoln passed away, I waited about a week, and I talked to the person I was living with at the time, and I asked her, should I get another? And she goes, do what you feel, right? So I went, okay. And I thought, I'm never going to get another dog again. Like, I cried so badly because it was not expected, and it was an emergency. And one of my friends came there with my girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, and when they left the room and when I said goodbye to Lincoln, and I cried so much, so loudly, that my friend Jason said, I never heard anyone cry like that before. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, I actually thought that stuff only happened on TV and movies, and I thought that was fake. But I see it's not, because he knows what kind of person I am. So so a week later, I was like, okay, I got to get another dog. I mean, I have to celebrate Lincoln's life by him giving up his life to give life to another dog that needed help. And I didn't want to, because I thought, oh my gosh, I don't want to fall in love with the dog, and then my heart's gonna die because it was just so bad that time. And so what happened is, I went, I'm just going to, and I didn't tell my ex. I called my girlfriend at the time. I didn't tell my girlfriend at the time that I was and we were moving in together. We were renting on a nice house, like a newer, like almost a new, like a 3,000 square foot house, beautiful ceilings, everything like that. And I'm like, so I'm getting this dog, and that's Nero, 10 years, 4 months of age when he arrived. He was intact. They'd used him for 7 years for breeding, caged and all that stuff, outdoors, and then 3 years after that he was left outdoors on a prong collar. So he had a huge white collar line from the prong collar, living outdoors. He's supposed to be 140 pounds. At the age of 10 years, roughly, they dumped him at the shelter at 75 pounds. He'd lived in Alabama. All these winters and summers are harsh outdoors. Intact, like I said, and all stuff. So they dumped him at the kennel. At that age, his history apparently was not good already. People knew about Nero, and his name actually was Negro before that in Alabama. So you can imagine what kind of people have a dog like that. But I didn't find out his name was Negro till after his death, and his foster said, yeah, this is actually his name, but we renamed him, which is right, which is just really nice, and I'm glad she did. I kind of whatever. So anyway, so what ended up happening is, so Save Rocky, the Great Dane Rescue and Rehab charity, the largest Great Dane rescue in North America, nationwide. So they had, Nero, and they had put on the listing. Actually, I've never talked about this before. So they put up on the listing saying, Great Dane, 10 years, blah, 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 he's got a bite history and all that stuff. I'm like, oh, well, whatever, who cares? I don't know. And when I read photos and descriptions, right, same thing like I said, you look at your friend's photo, you can see things. You look at your friend's dog, you go, oh, look how cute, right? Or look how angry, right? We have that. We can do that. And I'm doing it with our dogs. And you guys can do it yourselves with your friends' dogs and everything else. So I look at the photos of Nero, and they said, call. He has a unique personality, blah blah blah, and call. And it was interesting because Nero was getting like over 100,000 views and stuff on his stuff. Oh, dog, help him, blah blah blah. But then it was like, call. So I phoned up Amy, who's the founder of Save Rocky, and I talked to her, and she knew who I was from Elaine Dixon, who's the founder of Canada's oldest Great Dane Rescue, which is New Hope for Danes. So she's been around for like 40 years. So everyone vouches for me and all stuff. And Amy says, hey, so I'm going to tell you about Nero. I'm like, okay, go ahead. And I don't mean to be cocky, but I always go like, whatever, right? But at that time, Nero was my second dog. And so she said, well, Nero's quite dangerous. And I'm like, okay, yeah, he tries to attack people. Okay, well, no big deal. I'll still take him. He's 10 years old. The reason why I wanted an older dog was so that way I wouldn't expect anything less than to see and feel a tragic death suddenly. So it's kind of my conscious aspect of kind of hiding myself. So instead, I found a reason to do what I wanted to as an excuse, but to also understand that tragedy was going to hit again, but to be able to say, now at least I'm purposely making tragedy happen now. So that's kind of my psychology, as to protect myself, but to also do what I can. So I went, okay, I'm going to take Nero, because I know he's going to die. I figured 3 to 6 months, because at 10 years, 4 months of age, I mean, Great Dane, right? So he lived to 13 years, 7 months, 1 week old. And those of you who've seen the videos, you know what I've done for him. Phenomenal stuff. A friend, my beloved Nero Chai. So what ends up happening is, she said he's attacked people and all that stuff, and that what happened in one of the stories. And I think it's kind of funny because he's dangerous already, so why, right? But they didn't know how dangerous he was. So he'd be hanging out in the fence yard of the foster, and the fence is only like this tall. It's kind of like the playground fence is just 3.5 feet high, and so Nero would just kind of like, oh, hey, how's it going, and everything like that, and just kind of circle around. And apparently he would kind of hang out in the middle of the yard. And then when the people got close to the fence, right, he would just rush him and grab the guy and try to pull him into the yard. Like, he wasn't, right? So that's the difference between a dog that thinks about killing somebody versus a dog that is just so angry that just does whatever they can to kill somebody. So that's why the bite level 6 scale, where a dog kills somebody, as according to Ian Dunbar, is incorrect, right? Because the psychology is different. Because a dog like Nero, who's just kind of waiting there, la la la, and then he rushes and grabs the guy and yanks him into his yard, and people are just yanking him back in. That's a dog that does it on purpose. That's an intelligent dog. You see, when I talk about the feeding them raw beef bones yesterday, none of them are fighting, and then there's a part where Mingki and David are about to get at it. You see the predatorial behavior, that structure, the musculature structure shifts as the cognitive structure shifts to more of a logical process, streamlining away from the emotional complexities. So with Nero, getting back to him, as I go back here, so then I was like, okay, cool. We did the fundraiser, and I was working. I had my own little business. I was transporting high-value vehicles called Jet Say Transport. It was like Bugattis and everything. I was like, oh, hey, you know what? I'm gonna get a fundraiser, and I'm gonna donate it to Save Rocky, which is what I did. And I figured, okay, I'm gonna get him over here, and if I don't, he's gonna end up dying. So I'm gonna take him no matter what. And so I was always waiting for the phone call to be like, we can't send Nero because he died, right? I'm always thinking that. I'm like, oh man, he's always, yeah, one of these days. And every time I saw a message from her, like an update from either Foster or Amy, I was like, he's died, he's dead, right? He's dead. Right? Because he's 10 years, almost 10 years, 4 months at the time. He was 10 years, 3 months. I'm like, oh, he's dead, isn't he? He's dead. And it takes a while to fundraise as well. So, and then I got one call that was really, really bad, where Amy said, she phoned me up and said, Nero just tried to kill the Foster's adult daughter. It was about 250 pounds. And I said, what happened? And she said that she came from visiting from college, and everything was good, right? The usual, everything was good, unpredictable behavior. And she was sitting on the couch, and Nero went over and grabbed her by the arm, pulled her off the couch onto the floor, and started attacking her. See, so again, it's a cogent structure that happens when a dog is predacious, because there's deliberate intent. There's a deliberate intent. There's a methodological process that's gone on. There's a plan that's been ahead. If I'm going to go kill somebody, I'm going to grab them, bring them to a place where I want to. On the ground is no big deal. He's 140 pounds by that time. So to pull a 250-pound woman is really quite easy. These Danes here, David is 200 pounds. He can generate 3 times his body weight when he drags me. If I'm not careful, I will get dragged and get a concussion. I will get hurt very badly. You see me on the retractables, and so I'm always paying attention. So for Nero, he grabs her, pulls her on the thing, and just freaking wounded her. Right? He wounded her. And I've seen photos of it. She said, Amy goes, I'm sending you the photos. I'm like, oh no, okay, fine. She goes, I'm sending you the photos so you know what you're looking at. And I went, okay, send it to me. And the photos are always graphic. The flesh, the fat, everything's sticking, right? Not saying her fat. Every human being has fat, right? The fat, the white, it's gross, white and yellow and all that stuff. You look at the photo and you go, holy crap, I want to throw up. And she said to me, so I will understand if you say no. And I said, send him here. And the reason wasn't because I was trying to be brave. It's because I really knew deep down inside that I could help Nero. So he was my second dog. And Nero, one time grabbed me by the top of the head. I tell this story both times with this jaw. So I can't get one hand over it, so wide that he grabbed both my temples at the same time to warn me not to irritate him. There's videos where that I will post one day because they're still kind of personal, even though they're quite interesting. Is one time where Nero had tried to attack me, and I go and I start filming, and I sit back down and I have my arm here in case he goes for my throat, and he's this far up ahead of me. But the thing is, all these times, if I behave in a way where my dogs can't trust me, whether or not it be a foster or whatever, because again, they come into my home. It doesn't matter if I'm in an apartment or if I'm in a mansion. They come into my home. I control everything about them. I have absolute power. If Nero did that to me and I started beating him, what would have happened? I would have reminded him of every other human being that did that. Then you go, oh, now that makes sense why he would just kind of pretend like la la la, and then chase the guy or grab the woman and try to kill her. There's a reason why. Because somebody was going to do something that he expected to happen, living out in an aspect with no socialization or human aspects other than just incidental or anecdotal, means that his dysfunctions happen where I can't trust anybody except the only people in my life, like the chained boy. So that's what happens when we don't look at the context of emotions in the process at the diluted scale. Emotive structure is diluted. There's no way I could be accurate and be alive, right? I mean, it'd be inaccurate and be alive. All these theories, all these things I'm talking about, I apply in real time with my dogs because I've learned from them. I've learned from the extreme, and as each layer peels back, I get perspective now. Oh, that's why they were acting like that. And then when I get here, oh, that's why they were acting like that. Oh, we went there, and we pyramid, right? We destructure, we deconstruct the accident. When your dog does something, it's never sudden. Never, never sudden. My third dog was Sammy from Taiwan. 2 legs. It came up in my news feed from another rescue, crossed over and all that stuff. If people know British Columbia, Vancouver, relation to Prince George, is where Sammy was hit by a car crossing the street. Little stray dog, less than a year old. She still had a little collar on her. Well, so two questions are either she was dumped, or second, she was a community dog, a neighborhood dog. So they put a collar on a stray dog in those communities, so that way bad people or people who try to kill dogs for food will think, oh, this dog is owned, so that they'll kind of stay away a bit more. So they call them a community dog or a neighborhood dog. So she was crossing this, whatever kind of road it was, highway, and she was deliberately run over and lost both her legs, both her hind legs, instantly. Because the photos I saw as well were quite graphic. And if you look at Sammy's videos on my YouTube, there's some of it kind of blurred out where you can see literally the femur and all that stuff sticking off of both legs. So unfortunately, it's a tragedy, but in Taiwan, there are 2 million stray dogs there back in 2017, 2016. In 2019 or 18, 2019, they enacted the law that says no more stray dogs can be killed. So there has to be medical urgency for a dog to be killed, and all that did was they caused a overpopulation in the shelters, and then those people sold the dogs into the meat trade. Yeah, so the stuff that I hear in the background, you guys would just be, it's so tragic, like it's so incredibly traumatizing, because the people who contact me, their dogs are already they're already about to kill their dog. It's incredibly tragic, and I love it when people contact me, they're preventative. Hey, I want to help. I'm like, okay, I'm so happy to help you, and I'll help your dog for pretty well ever. So Sammy comes back here. I said I'm going to adopt her, and the thing is, with 2 million stray dogs, they have shelters that have upwards of 10,000 dogs. I've seen photos. It's unbelievable. And of course, in those huge shelters, medical is an issue. Food is always an issue. For 10,000 dogs, that's hundreds of pounds a day in food. And fights happen. And it's just like in a prison, right? Then so it becomes a huge tragedy again. It is helpful and it isn't. Dogs with disabilities, good luck. They live in the shelter for the rest of their life. So when I saw Sammy, I went, oh, hey, I'm going to adopt her. So that was my second dog, third dog after with Lincoln. And my girlfriend was like, okay, she's like, oh, another dog. There's Nero, already a dangerous dog, and her son was living with us because he's like 16. And then there's Sammy, he's like, and a disabled dog. And she was like, okay, fine. She was pretty cool. She was a really nice person. So then afterwards, we broke up, and I went and lived on my own and rented a rancher and all that stuff. And then I worked a couple of dogs, just a couple of them for Elaine Dixon at New Hope for Danes, just a couple of them, and they were dangerous. One tried to attack me a few times outdoors, and I was like, oh shoot, now I have to bring him indoors. And then he attacked Lincoln, my dear Lincoln, before a few times, and then I had to deal with that. And then a week later, they were playing off leash and all that stuff, just by integration without treats. And I was just trying that out at the time. So then Tonka came into the thing. I was helping somebody in LA with their dog. I can't remember what her dog's name is. So anyway, she asked me for help, and I said okay. And I would help her on the by message and all that stuff. And I was still running transport, right? I was moving high value vehicles, so I'd be talking. And one time I got a message on my PM, and it said, "Oh, there's I can't handle it anymore, and I'm gonna have to say goodbye." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, what's that?" Right? And I thought she was gonna kill her dog. Her family had just given up, and I was like, right? And so I called her right away, and she said, "Oh no, oh sorry, you didn't read the rest of the message." I said I can't. I'm driving right now. But what's going on with your dog? I couldn't remember his name. And so she said, "Oh, it's not my dog. It's this dog named Tonka. He's out in New York, in Southampton, and they're going to kill him. And he's this beautiful dog, and he reminds me of my dog because her dog's a Harlequin. And can you do something, please?" And I was like, ugh. And I was like, okay, because that would have been like Nero, Sammy, and Walter, and I was still trying to get back to my ex-girlfriend, right? So I'm like, yeah, what do I do? Who do I go for? My ex-girlfriend, who I still love? Or do I go from this dog that I can save? And I went, fuck it, right? So I said, okay, well, what's wrong with Tonka? And so I read the message again. I said, let me read it, and I phoned her back, and it said it was a person who was his volunteer with him for a year, and basically had said that they had tried and tried for a year, and he's just not getting any better. And he's gone through all these homes and all this stuff. And tomorrow I'm feeding him cheeseburgers tonight, and tomorrow I'm saying goodbye. And I've tried, and I wish da 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 da. I was like, and I looked at his photos and went, and I read his physical structure back then, and I was like, oh, okay. And I read his stuff, little things. There's a couple of second videos, like 6-second videos. I'm like, oh, okay, what's wrong with him? And I was like, okay. And I wasn't trying to be, again, I was still dealing with Nero a year before, and Nero, wasn't trying to attack people, wasn't trying to attack me. A whole bunch of nice things were happening, right? He always got along with Sam. He always got along with the little dogs. The bigger dogs made him feel worried, right? Because he was always a small, chained-up dog in his mind. He was unsafe. So then what happened with... so I said, yeah, I'll take Tonka. And so then they said, okay, well, we need to talk. I went, all right, whatever. And I said, first off, before you go on, doesn't matter what you say, if he's tried to kill somebody, etc., I'll take him. And so she said, okay, well... and then they explained what happened, what he did, all these little issues. And I'll talk about some other time because now I'm running way behind. But long story short, so Tonka was literally like my 6th or 7th dog in my life. And that's including Sammy and Lincoln and Nero. And there was a dog named Otis and another one. And then a third. They're always, there was Melody and Finnegan. So that was it. So literally, by the skin of my pants, I took on the most extremely dangerous dog in North America. Literally turned down by Ian Dunbar, turned down by Rebecca Ledger, turned down by everybody in North America, because Southampton's animal shelter, they got Howard Stern money. Everyone turned him down and said that Tonka will kill somebody. Not maybe, but he will kill somebody. His size, he's also 3 feet 2 inches at the shoulders. He used to have a tail that was like 3 feet long, and then Happy Tail got it down to this amount, and then stress made him bite off that part in one night. So you can imagine the predator that was inside him, the behaviors that were inside of him. And I knew all these things, and then they showed me the photos of him after trying to kill a shelter worker. He literally dragged her into his kennel, and then the whole thing is swathed in blood and the folds and the injuries. Every dog can be helped. We just got to look at the structure. If you watch this whole video again, you'll see the objectification, making our dog feel safe. I can take the most extremely dangerous dog and make them feel safe because I'm not doing things that every other human being is going to do to them, which is freak out, get angry, make them feel unsafe. I have absolute power over them. I have this whole room. They can't get out. I could close the door and leave them forever. They could die of starvation, right? I have absolute power. Why would I treat them and misuse them that way? Why would I abuse absolute power? Our dogs know we have absolute power. We walk them on a leash. We are supposed to keep them safe from the noises in the sky, from the thunder all around them. We're supposed to keep them safe. That's what happens. When we let them know they're safe, they start trusting us. And then we try to keep that bond by proving to them that we'll always keep them safe. There's a beautiful children's book that I absolutely love, and I always use an analogy. It's just a simple story. It's called The Runaway Bunny. And the runaway bunny is about this little boy bunny and the mommy bunny. And the little boy bunny says, I don't like it here. I'm running away. Nobody loves me. I'm going to run away. And he packs his little bunny bag up, and he gets in, puts on a little stick, and he walks out the door. And mom says, stop. Where are you going? Where are you going? He says, I don't like it here. Nobody loves me. Blah, 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 whatever, right? I'm running away. And then mommy bunny says, well, where are you going to go? He says, well, I'm going to go to grandma's house. And then mommy says, I'm paraphrasing. Mommy says, well, I'll go to grandma's house. I'll find you, and I'll hug you, and I'll bring you home and love you forever. And then the bunny says, well, then I'm going to climb to the top of the mountain, the tallest mountain in the world. Mommy says, well, I'm going to climb to the top of the mountain, I'm going to take you home, and I'm going to love you forever. And then the bunny's so really upset. He goes, well, I'm going to get into a submarine and go to the deepest part of the ocean. You can't get me. And mommy bunny says, well, then I'm going to get into my own submarine, and I'm going to go down to your submarine. I'm going to grab you, take you home, and love you forever. Then the baby bunny says, oh, shucks. Well, then I might as well stay home. So the analogy is from that little children's story, The Runaway Bunny, is the baby bunny just wanted to feel safe and loved, and he wasn't feeling it yet. That's your dog not feeling safe, your child not feeling safe. If we protect them, right? What's the last thing on your mind if you're scared, right? Is who can I call to help me, right? You think of your parents, you think of people dear to you, emotionally connected. So your dog is expecting this from us. Emotional isomorphism, the medication, all that kind of stuff that's happening, it's not working here. Every single dog has been put through one form or another of treatment, abuse, and some have been done so repeatedly, and by the best of the best as well. People who have spent $30,000 on one trainer. All these dogs have, and I do it for free. It doesn't make me magnanimous. It's just because I'm supposed to. I can't go and waste what I know and not be able to prove it to the world, and want to be able to share it with everybody. Watch the video here. I'm going to go watch the video here. You'll figure out how simple it is to objectify the noises, that your dog is no longer scared of thunder. You won't have to buy a thunder shirt. You won't have to buy anything at all. All my dogs are like that. They're skittish extreme, and you see them in the videos. Thunder, they're just like, okay, and they look at me, I give them a hug, a reset hug, all that stuff. Thunder, fireworks, the noises out the doors, the scary sounds while you're walking. No treats. You don't need treats, because fear is not hungry. Fear doesn't have an appetite. Anxiety, all that stuff, right? They're talking about like dogs drinking too much water. That's a different aspect of that anxiety. But fear, right, isn't looking for food. The canine species, evolutionarily speaking, fights to death over food, right? Survival of the fittest. So this academia is kind of a little backwards there with evolution. End of the day, let our dogs feel safe. See the danger, you point it out in a very casual tone, so that way they know you're looking. All right, thank you. Tomorrow, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm trying to figure out topics. I'm getting a little dry here, because to me it feels like as if I've talked about everything, but because I've done everything, I guess that it just feels like I've said everything, and I feel like as if I'm kind of, but I'm going to try to be more explicit about, I guess, some nuances of structures and everything. All right, anyways, have fun. Hopefully my Conan the Barbarian one sells for lots of money. I'm hoping for that as the auction goes out. Anyways, take care, enjoy